It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I am Iron Man.
I'm Pickle Rick!
I have a dream.
I am your father.
I'm Sean Spencer. This is my partner, Gus Silly Pants Jackson.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
God bless America.
Avengers!
Assemble.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune. When I'm back on top in June. I said that's life. That's life. And as funny as it may seem.
Welcome back to life, you beautiful, beautiful humans. I did something that I've never done before. I recorded an entire episode, and then I trashed it. I literally went to post it, and I didn't like it. It didn't feel right. I didn't like the content. So I deleted an entire podcast episode that was supposed to be uploaded to you last week. You know, that's the power of having your own podcast. You can just kind of veto stuff sometimes. So I did. And I'm bringing you a much more fun episode today. An episode that I honestly, I'm pretty passionate about because I watched a lot of TV growing up. Not because I had bad parents, just because I love TV. And today we're talking about TV sitcoms, the magic of TV sitcoms, and I'm going to rank my top 5 sitcoms of all time. And let me specify from the beginning. When I say my top 5, I mean ones that I grew up watching and are in my top 5 for my pure enjoyment, not necessarily top 5 all time, as in, you know, from the 1940s when it started and on. Just so we're clear from the beginning, so when we get to the end and I start naming some of my favorite sitcoms and you're just like, how can you pass up I Love Lucy and Dick Van Dyke? Spoiler alert, they're not in my top 5. It's because I didn't grow up really watching those or loving those, so it's just my top 5 that I grew up loving. Anyways, just a little sidebar. Before we can even talk even a little bit about that, make sure you're following at That's Life with Jacob on social media, at @ That's Life with Jacob, all one word, all lowercase, on social media. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It's so much fun, okay? We have a lot of fun on my social medias. And you get sneak peeks of episodes. You get exclusive posts, exclusive videos, exclusive content. There's a Thor Love and Thunder review coming tomorrow, because this episode is coming out on a Monday. So Tuesday, you'll have a Thor Love and Thunder review. But you only know that kind of stuff if you're on the social media, at That's Life with Jacob. Now, let's get into Sitcom Magic.
So no one told you life was gonna be this way.
That's it. That's all you're getting of Friends. This is the only Friends portion of the podcast that you're going to get. Spoiler alert, Friends is not in my top 5. I don't think Friends is that good. I don't necessarily love the characters. Joey and Chandler are great. I mean, I thought Monica was annoying the entire time. Phoebe was a good character. I'm not a Friends fan. Now, I know that's an unpopular opinion. Many of you are. Many of you are threatening to kill me as we speak. But that's why my top 5 list is very objective. And I told you, sitcoms are going to be more objective. It's like, for me, sitcoms are like music, right? There's either an artist where you can sit down and listen to their entire album. That's a great sitcom. You know, you can sit down, watch any episode at any time, any day of the week. And you're like, bam, that's my personal top 5. I love that sitcom. I could sit down and watch. I could listen to that artist any day of the week. Or there's artists that they have good songs, but you don't necessarily like the entire album. That's all the other sitcoms. Friends is one of those for me. There's some great episodes. There's some fun episodes. But I would never sit down and watch Friends from start to finish ever again. If it's on TV, I ain't stopping to watch a 25-minute episode. That's just, it's like music. Sitcoms are like music. It's a lot of give and take, pick and choose. You either love this artist and everything they do is amazing. You know, with exception, there's always going to be a few bad episodes. But for the most part, you could sit down and listen to this entire album and be happy. Or you can't listen to the entire album because you only like 2 songs from this artist. And Friends is one of those for me. I am not a Friends fan. It could be because I have no friends. But, you know, we're not going to talk about it. Anyways, acting. But yeah, Friends is not that for me. I just don't like it. Fun fact about Friends, though. So, sitcom theme songs had always been like a thing since they debuted in 1947, basically. Well, debuted in America in 1947, debuted in London in 1946. We'll talk about the history here in a second. But since they debuted, theme songs or like catchphrases, that was, you know, what grabbed people into sitcoms. They gravitated towards the fun sitcoms. Whatever happened to this ability? If I'm being honest, I don't know the entire words of the Full House theme song. I know the milkman, the paperboy. And then I used to say as a kid, the me man TV. That sentence makes no sense, Jacob, and I still sing it that way as an adult. Just saying. But you go back to like Cheers, you go back to all, you know, I Love Lucy, you go back to all of these, they had catchy theme songs. They had great intros. Well, actually, before Friends came along, theme songs and catchphrase, that kind of stuff was honestly a thing of the past. In fact, the last couple of sitcoms that debuted, the theme songs were so bad that they were thinking about doing away with theme songs, the studios were, for the foreseeable future when it comes to the sitcoms. They were thinking about axing the theme songs. Which now, if we think about it, axing the sitcom to or the theme song to your favorite sitcom like Friends or The Office, what does that honestly? How does that change the sitcom for you? Changes it just at least a little bit, right? Like, theme songs are very important to the sitcom that they're involved with. And Friends, their theme song, I'll be there for you, it's the only good part of Friends. I can imagine, like, all these just, like, 28-year-old, you know, women so pissed at me right now. How dare you talk about Friends like that? Chandler's a saint. Monica's amazing. Good episodes. There's some good episodes. Not a great show. But the theme song of Friends actually saved theme songs for sitcoms in the future. Because when I'll Be There For You debuted, it was the #1 trending song on the billboards for months. And the executives said, well, if this song can be #1 on the billboards, then we definitely need to keep theme songs in our upcoming sitcoms. So Friends, I extend my hand across the table. I shake your hand because you saved some of my favorite theme songs of all time that are in my top 5. You saved that, and I want to thank you for that. But besides that, you're a little bit overrated and not that great. Now let's talk about sitcoms in general. So the word sitcom stands for situational comedy, okay? And that's where we get the word sitcom. Just smash those 2 words together. I know, we're geniuses here. But the first ever sitcom actually debuted all the way back in 1946 in the United Kingdom. Look at that. The United Kingdom started something and then America made it better again. You know, kind of like our country. Okay? I probably don't have any UK listeners, so it's okay. But I would love for one of them to be like, bollocks, this guy's a jackass. I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that goes through my head. Like, I find it funny when people get upset over stupid jokes. I've talked about this on all my other shows. I will get just like a random Karen or Kevin off and on who would just write me and be like, I just want you to know, basically, you're a piece of crap. How dare you tell that joke about, you know, Taco Bell? That's uncalled for. Oh, okay. So I'm sure I'll get, if I get people upset about jokes about like Taco Bell and caves, then I'm sure I'll get one over that UK joke. But I don't care. First ever one, 1946. It followed the story of a man named Jay Pinwright. It was called Pinwright's Progress, who was a small shop owner. And it debuted on the BBC network. I didn't realize the BBC network was that old. Like, that's pretty remarkable in and of itself. I just didn't know that. And then the trend of the sitcom became so popular and took the world by such storm that the United States followed shortly after in 1947 with their first ever sitcom, Mary Kay and Johnny, a show that followed a pair of New Yorker newlyweds. And it premiered in 1947, a little under like 8 months or something like that, in between UK's debut to America's debut, that their sitcom came out. And what's interesting is for sitcoms to catch fire that quickly is not normal. It's not ordinary for a trend to get picked up and move on as quick as it did with like it did with sitcoms. Nowadays it would be, because we have ample amount of social media where you can post something and it can become viral instantly. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of it. I posted a video and it became viral in a couple hours with, a couple million views. And it's a very weird thing to happen. But it's very rare that does happen. Especially back then. Back then, they didn't have the word of social media. They didn't have, they didn't have TikTok and Instagram where they could post about it and share their favorite clips from it. Like, the word of mouth is what spread so quickly back then, and newspapers, and sitcoms started spreading like a wildfire. I mean, right after it debuted in 1947 in America, several sitcom shows were being debuted over the next several months, and literally as soon as 1948, we had our first recurring African-American character in a sitcom, which it took, think about the amount of years it took for African-Americans to get the respect that they deserve, let alone be a recurring character in a debut sitcom in 1948, that quickly after sitcoms just started in 1946. It's a pretty remarkable feat, and that shows the power, and I call this episode Sitcom Magic for a reason. It shows the power of laughter and shows the power of comedy. Everybody can get behind comedy. It should be the one thing that's protected in America. We've got some crazy nut jobs trying to attack comedy right now, but let's be honest, comedy is what brought the world together. Laughter is what brought the world together. Legit. Sitcoms, and I know I'm probably blowing this a little bit out of proportion, of course, but sitcoms really made such a powerful impact that they not only started debuting every freaking week, but we were getting African Americans recurring roles in 1948, which was just unheard of. It was not normal. That's the power of sitcoms and the power of comedy, and that's why I call it magic, because it literally debuted in one small place in the United Kingdom, and now it's spread like a wildfire, and it's a global. The Office is watched global. Friends is watched global. It's pretty crazy. Then, of course, we've got I Love Lucy, the most recognizable, I would say, American sitcom. It is famous for a few different reasons. In fact, I Love Lucy, the episodes were shot almost every time from start to finish. It was like a giant play that was being televised. They would have the entire scene set up, the entire day set up, and they would spend all day shooting the episode. They would shoot the episodes nonstop. They rarely ever were retaped, reshot, or fixed. They would literally it was like a play. And that's why you have so many beautiful moments in I Love Lucy of raw emotion, raw laughter, great improvisation, because it was just, boom, one take and we're done. And, as many of you know, if you've ever edited photos or videos, it is a lot of splicing, moving things together, seeing what works, what doesn't work, rewriting, reshooting. And I mean, hell, if I shoot a 15-minute video, it might take me 2 hours to do a 15-minute video. And I Love Lucy literally defied all odds and said, no, we're just going to shoot it from start to finish. That's our take. Boom, let's go. And it's the first ever show to end #1 on the charts. My sister Jennifer is a massive I Love Lucy fan. I mean, has all the collectibles and stuff. So, I grew up watching I Love Lucy. Hello, Lucy. It's such a good show. But, I mean, it was the first pioneer in a lot of different ways, and I think that's why it's probably the most recognizable. If I said, name the most popular sitcom in American history, I think I Love Lucy would be up there, MASH would be up there, maybe even Cheers would be up there. I didn't realize how popular Cheers was, but, I also wasn't alive back then. A few other things about sitcoms. The largest farewell sitcom, the largest last episode up to date, was MASH. and it had over 100 million viewers on its final episode, which was unheard of. They said it was the saddest day in U.S. history, which, I mean, I don't think that that's true, but they say it was the saddest day in U.S. history when millions of Americans gathered crying around the television set knowing they wouldn't see their characters on television anymore. The last episode of MASH had 105.9 million viewers on its final episode. You're never going to get that again. With the power of streaming, you'll never, ever, ever get an episode of a sitcom that will have 105 million viewers. See, back then, stuff like the radio, stuff like sitcom, like all that kind of stuff, it brought people together. You know, there was no TiVo. There was no recording. You watched it or you missed it. You know, it might have debuted a couple weeks later. Or it might have replayed a couple weeks later. But you either watched it or you missed it. And you didn't want to be the person missing it. So families and households would gather every Wednesday and watch a show. Like, I read an interesting article that said, like, one of the biggest final episodes of a show was like 3.8 million on the day that it aired. So that's still a lot, like almost 4 million people watching on the last episode, but you're never going to get a singular day where you have 105 million people watching the same thing anymore. You won't. I don't know what numbers the Super Bowl does. I'm sure it's astronomical, but I mean, I don't even know if the Super Bowl, I would assume the Super Bowl probably gets around these numbers. Actually, in fact, the cool thing is I can look that up right now. And boom, there it is. The Super Bowl gets about 114 million viewers on average per year. So besides events like the Super Bowl, besides crazy events, you're never going to get a TV sitcom that will do those kind of numbers. And a lot of that does deal with the fact that we have streaming, the fact that we have recording. But it just shows you how powerful sitcoms were. The fact that 105 million people could be brought together in a singular night to watch one episode of a comedy TV show is pretty remarkable. I mean, hell, I have a tattoo because of a TV sitcom. We have a siblings tattoo. Me and my siblings, well, actually, two of us have it right now. Everybody else is being a bunch of chickens. But we all have a tattoo, or are getting a tattoo, because of a TV sitcom. So it's pretty crazy. Let's go a few more interesting facts here. The first season of Friends, each actor made around $22,000. By the second season, it was so popular that a few of them negotiated up to $40,000. Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer being the top two candidates for that. After that, before the third season started, the cast decided to go in and negotiate their contracts together, so that way, you know, as friends, no pun intended, straight up, they wouldn't be alienated and the episodes wouldn't lack because of jealousy or because of anger towards money. So they all went in and negotiated for the same salary. And by the third season, they were each receiving $1 million an episode. That's how popular Friends was. So that's how unpopular my opinion is, that it's not that great. That's how unpopular I understand. That's how you all know that I'm being 100% honest and upfront with you. The fact that I can go against, they were doing so well that they were able to pay their actors $1 million an episode, which was unheard of for television. Unheard of. So I'm just being real and honest with you guys. Unlike Fox, I'm fair and balanced. By the way, and this is just to throw this little nugget out there. Any news source that you listen to that has a bias right or left is full of crap. If they're a right wing or a left wing or a middle wing, don't matter. Everybody's got an agenda, just so you know. But I don't. That's the thing, I don't. I don't have an agenda. Unless that agenda is to prove to you that Marvel is better than DC, then maybe I do. Okay, maybe I am biased a little bit. Seinfeld, while Seinfeld is commonly known and widely known about, as the show about nothing, it had another theme that was secretive only to the creator and writer in Larry David. he instituted a no hugging and no learning policy with the actors. The characters were not supposed to infuse any kind of sentimental meaning into any scenes, and they were never supposed to learn from their mistakes. And I think that's what captures the magic of Seinfeld for so many people is, these characters do repeatedly make the same mistakes. They don't learn from their mistakes. There's not a whole lot of episodes where there's a big hugging sentimental scene, and it really is the show about nothing. You can turn on an episode of Seinfeld and there's no weight to it. There's no, diehard emotions. There's no, it's just a show. It's just a show about nothing, and people love that show about nothing because it was another one of those that ended number one on the billboards. It ended at the top of its game. Seinfeld for me is another one of those Friends where it's it's definitely better than Friends, but I've seen it all the way through from start to finish. I would never rewatch it. There's a couple really great episodes. The No Soup for You episode, No Soup for You. One of the best individual episodes in the history of television. But as a whole, I would never really watch Seinfeld over again. But I think the magic of it and what captured so many people is the fact that it was a show that people could just watch, turn their brains off, and enjoy. And that was done on purpose. The sitcom Community, one that many of you probably aren't too familiar with. Community is actually one of the very first ones I watched. I remember it was one of the more adult ones that I ever got to watch, and I watched it with my dad. And it's okay. It's not great, but it has a special place in my heart just for that. But Community is actually based off of Dan Harmon, also the creator of Rick and Morty. It's actually based off his life and his true stories from the community college that he went to. And I think that's always what makes a show pretty special is when the writer/creator is pulling from his own personal life, because so many of us have incredible, crazy stories that if we had an outlet to share, would be the greatest thing ever. And Dan Harmon found a way to make that successful. The Big Bang Theory, one of my all-time favorites. But the cast was so dedicated to their on-screen portrayals that each character learned to play the instrument that their character would play in the show, so that way they could bring an authentic self to the role. So, and the crazy part is Amy, for those of you who don't know, she's has a real doctorate. She's a real scientist in real life, which is pretty cool. But Sheldon plays the theremin and recorder. Leonard plays the cello. Howard was actually a professional pianist before the show started. But all of these characters in the show, they learned to play the instruments, and a lot of them even went to night classes to learn about what their character was actually studying in the show so that they could bring a real authentic portrayal of the character on screen. And I think that's why I love Big Bang Theory is you could tell the chemistry was so fantastic, but you could tell that these characters these actors really loved who they were playing. And sometimes that doesn't come across on screen, but for me personally, I know that they absolutely loved being with each other. I know that they absolutely loved the characters that they were playing because they showed that repeatedly on the show. And, even right here, look how dedicated they were to their on-screen roles. And actually Leonard and Penny dated and I think were engaged in real life for a long, long time. So the on-screen chemistry was there, but I love the fact that those small details of they actually went out of their way to learn, to go to night classes and to learn the instruments that their characters would play. I already said this, but Amy was actually a doctor. She has a PhD in neuroscience. That's pretty cool, if we're being honest. Something you've dedicated your life to, something you're truly passionate about, and then you get to play a character on television that has that exact same passion. I assume it's probably not that big of a stretch. That's pretty incredible. Let's just do one more here just for fun. There's not many shows that have made the 300 mark, the 300 episode mark. There's only 3 shows that have approached the milestone. The Danny Thomas Show, never heard of it. My Three Sons, never heard of it. And The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, which is also the longest-running live-action American sitcom of all time, with 435 episodes. Now, of course, if we were bringing the animation into it, The Simpsons dominates everybody. I think they're up to 600 episodes. Let me look that up real quick. Yep, Simpsons is up to 600 episodes. So, strictly live action. Those are the 3 longest-running sitcoms of all time. The Simpsons dominates everybody if we're going to the animated world. But those are a few interesting facts about sitcoms. Now let's talk about my top 5 sitcoms of all time. And once again, let me make it clear. The reason I'm choosing these as my personal top 5 is these are the shows on any given day, any given time, any given episode, I'm sitting down and I'm enjoying the hell out of this show. That's it. Those are my only criterias. These are shows that I grew up with, shows that are personal to me, shows that I would sit down and if I had 5 sitcoms to take to my grave and I had to watch these the rest of my life, these are it. These are my top 5 all time. Coming in at, also, I'm not going to include streaming. Just so we're clear, because a lot of people are going to be pissed that I don't include Ted Lasso, and I would be pissed at me too, but this is only original TV airings. This is not sitcoms that are airing on streaming services like Apple Plus or Hulu or any of those. Although there's some incredible ones on there, we're going to leave those out for right now. These are just ones that debuted on, ABC or Fox or whatever. So at my number 5, everybody loves Raymond. Ray Romano is one of the more underrated comedians, actors, and writers probably in the last 30 years. Everybody Loves Raymond is brilliant for this simple reason. Everybody knows people that are on that show. Everybody knows Ray Romano's mom and dad. Everybody knows grandparents or has grandparents that are just like them. Ray's wife or even Ray himself. Everybody knows people that are like them. Everybody knows Ray's brother. Everybody has friends like Ray. It's relatable in the sense that it feels very familiar to you. The dry humor is some of my all-time favorite kind of comedy all time is dry humor. I like very on-your-nose, silly jokes. But I'm a big fan of dry humor. And if Ray Romano delivers in dry humor all the time. And that's my go-to. That's the cherry on top of the sundae for me, is just some good dry humor. And that's why my number 1 sitcom all time will make complete sense, because my go-to is dry humor. But Ray Romano was actually just in a movie about 3-4 years ago. And I didn't realize what a brilliant actor he was until I watched this movie. It's a movie about his best friend gets cancer. And so basically his best friend's like, hey, let's go do all of the things that I've always wanted to do. Let's go skydiving. Let's go, travel the world. And it's a really sweet movie, sad movie. His acting chops are second to none. But, nonetheless, not here to just praise Ray Romano. I love the show. One of my all-time favorites. That comes in at number 5. At number 4, in West Philadelphia, born and raised, at the playground is where I spend most of my days. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I used to walk into my classrooms in high school to the song, "It's Not Unusual to Be Loved by Anyone," and I would do the Carlton dance. That show, but minus the Carlton dance, the one-liners that I used to use on the ladies because of what Will Smith taught me when I was a kid. Man, I wish you were a plant, because I'd love to plant a whole field of y'all. Like stuff like that. Oh, hands down. Will Smith is who I wanted to be because of that show. I wanted to be Will Smith. Carlton, I had the biggest crush on Hillary. Like, she was my heartthrob as a kid. Uncle Phil, It's just, everybody had that friend named Jazz who was just a nutbag. But Fresh Prince is one of the all-time goats of sitcoms. And also the new Fresh Prince show, the new Bel-Air show can suck it. Will Smith should have come back if they were going to even dare to grace a screen and call it Bel-Air and let it be related to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air coming in at number 4 for me. At number 3, Life is Unfair. Malcolm in the Middle. Malcolm in the Middle might be the most underrated sitcom on my list. It was a personal favorite of mine and my brother's growing up. I have very sweet memories of my brother and I watching Malcolm in the Middle. And actually, the other day, I went over to his house, and we sat down and watched a couple episodes of Malcolm in the Middle together. And I forgot just what a hilarious show that is. And you don't realize the brilliance of Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston is one of the biggest actors in Hollywood right now. He's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood right now. He's, Heisenberg. I mean, Breaking Bad's one of the biggest TV shows of all time. And the fact that he was Malcolm's dad in that show, you always forget that he's in there. And he's brilliant, man. And Frankie Muniz is brilliant. And Reese was my brother. Like, the fact that my brother and I, the reason we love that show so much growing up is my brother and I were Malcolm and were Reese. I wasn't a certified genius, but I was usually the smarter one, staying out of trouble. My brother was definitely Reese. And it was funny, we were just talking about it. Reese at one point doesn't know what to do with his life, so he ends up joining the military. And I joke with my brother all the time. I was like, you are real life Reese. Like, you're the real life version of him. Justin got to a point where he's like, I don't know what I want to do. And then he just up and joined the military a couple weeks later. And he's right. Like, I could never do it. You know, I could never join the military if I'm being honest. Do you guys allow skinny jeans around here? They're like, can you please leave, sir? Oh, okay, see ya. Do you guys have a podcast division for the Army? No? Oh, okay. But, I mean, just for the sweet memories alone with me and my brother growing up, and my brother literally being Reese, Malcolm in the Middle is my number 3. Oh, fun. I heard a really cool story about Malcolm in the Middle the other day on another podcast, which is Bryan Cranston. You know, he's this giant megastar right now. He still calls the cast of Malcolm in the Middle from all those years ago. Talks to them about once a week, once every 2 weeks, checks up on them, asks how they're doing. Like, that's awesome. That's the people that inspire people, where it's like, that guy has all the money in the world, all the fame in the world, has done everything he could possibly ever want to do, most successful TV show, has massively successful movies, and he still calls the cast of Malcolm in the Middle all these years later and just checks up on them, sees how they're doing. It's like, that story right there warms my heart. But Malcolm in the Middle comes in at my number 3. At my number 2, The Big Bang Theory. Now, none of you are shocked. I get it. None of you are shocked. The Big Bang Theory, I relate to it so much that it's hard to not be in my top 2. It was almost disrespectful for me to not slide it all the way up to my top 2. I mean, Sheldon Cooper, Leonard, these are my guys. Whether it's the superhero nerdiness, it's the comic books, it's the food, it's being anal about your collectibles, it's being a giant dork, minus the super scientific stuff because I'm not that smart. Like, this was the first sitcom that I really felt like I could relate to. Like, these were my dudes. 4 nerds just making their way through life, and I was like, yo, they finally made a show for me. The nerds had a voice. And honestly, it's one of the funnier shows that's out there. And what I loved about it is it ended beautifully. Not many sitcoms know how to end just on a high note, and it ended the most perfect way any sitcom could. It ended with everybody getting exactly what they were working for the entire time. It ends with everybody being happy with their direction in life, and it made sense. They didn't rush it. They organically made the end of the story happen. And that's very, very hard to do, because a lot of times they go, oh, well, we're not getting renewed for a 7th season, so they rush, 5 episodes, makes no sense, and they end up the story abruptly and leave it up to the audience to figure out what happens. They don't do that with Big Bang Theory. You know what happens, you know why it happens, it organically happens, you feel happy for the characters, and you feel like they finally got a perfect send-off. And there's 2 lines from this show that I quote every single day of my life. Never play bongos while walking down the stairs. And if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. That's one of the best TV lines of all time. And then when Sheldon and Leonard are trying to take up a really heavy piece of furniture up the stairs, and and Sheldon's like, he's at the top of the box, at the top of the stairs. And he goes, I'll run around and help you push it. And so he lets go of the box and it slides down the stairs all the way back to the beginning of where they were lifting it up, and he goes, gravity, thou art a heartless bitch. I say that all the time, too. 2 best lines of any TV show that I've ever seen. But there it is, Big Bang Theory comes in at number 2. And at number 1, this was a hard one for me. That's what she said. Boom, The Office is at number 1. Guys, I was waiting for that That's What She Said joke so bad. I wanted it so bad. That's what she said. The Office. The Office is, when I say I love dry humor, that what do all my shows, besides The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all my shows have in common is they have a very strong dry humor vibe. The Office is the driest of the dry humor. Things that are, these characters are supposed to be being serious, but it comes across as dry humor, and that's what I love so much about The Office. I fell in love with The Office with, the first episode I ever saw was Megadesk, where literally Jim's out of the office and then Dwight creates Megadesk while he's gone. That was the first episode I ever saw. This first episode, I was like, I love this show. I've seen it all the way through. This is not a joke. I've seen it all the way through 7 times now. And I've seen it all the way up until the episode after the last episode that Michael Scott appears in. I've seen it all the way up to there 13 times. Listen, it's hard for me to get past the second Michael's no longer on the show. It's not that I think the show gets terrible. It's not great, but it doesn't get terrible. It's just the sadness of not having Michael Scott around hurts. So it's hard for me to get past that point. But overall, even when Michael left and Michael was the heart of the show, The Office did a great job being such a good show still. Like, you still enjoyed the characters grew, and then, of course, Michael comes back for Dwight to marry Angela. Everybody's happily ever after. But The Office is the driest of the dry humor. I find it to be the funniest show to this day that I've ever seen. I can watch any episode repeatedly, and I never get bored. Like I said, been through the entire thing 7 times, been through all the way up to the final episode that Michael Scott appears around 13 times, and it never gets old for me. In fact, it is my go-to when I sit down to eat dinner, just turn on The Office show, and that rounds out my number 1. But listen, I want to know what your top 5 sitcoms are of all time. I texted this in my family group chat the other day, and they were torn. They had no idea. They said it was one of the hardest questions that I had ever asked. So what is your top 5 sitcoms of all time? I mean, there's some classic ones out there. There's so many good ones. You have Schitt's Creek. You have Raising Hope. You have The Middle. You have the first 2 seasons of Blackish that were hilarious. You have Modern Family. You have, of course, the older ones. You have the MASHes, the Dick Van Dykes, the Cheers, the I Love Lucy's. So if you like the older stuff that's there, there's so many just good shows out there, not even including the streaming services. There's so many just good ones out there. I'd love to hear from you. At That's Life with Jacob on social media. Drop it in my DMs, and I will repost my favorite top 5 sitcoms of all time from you guys. So if you want to be involved in the show, at That's Life with Jacob, and I will repost them. I promise. Listen, if you like the show, if you love the show, if you even on the show, if you even make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure you share it with a friend. Make sure you leave a comment below. Whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, leave a comment, rate the show. If you love us, share us with a friend. At That's Life with Jacob. I'm out. See you guys. I'm done for the day. Okay? I'm gonna go enjoy my pool. And by pool, I'm gonna go to my community pool with all the other poor people that can't afford their own pool. Love you guys. Once again, everybody, I'm Jacob Courtright. And that's life.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say.